You guys have asked a lot about the development of the quarterback position. I'll talk about that decision-making process, so we got complete clarity there. As you guys have seen, because of the release of our depth chart, Mitch Trubisky is our starting quarterback and our captain. Man, we're just really comfortable with what Mitch has shown us. He's a guy that came to us with franchise quarterback experience, if you will. He's comfortable in those shoes. He's been the focal point of a football team and an organization before. He's had success in doing so. Like I mentioned when we acquired him, he took the Bears to the playoffs 2 out of 4 years. He has a winning record as a starting quarterback. Those things were attractive to us. His athleticism and mobility were attractive to us. He took care of the football in stadium. All our quarterbacks did, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. It's good to come to decisions based on what people are doing as opposed to what people are not doing.
I'll tell you, you guys don't know this about me, Jim Trotter, Eric Edholm. You don't know this about me. Sometimes I just like, some people, when they want to relax, they put on a movie and just kind of chill out. When I want to relax, I put on Mike Tomlin. I just want to put on Mike. I listen to Mike Tomlin. I just love listening to the guy. I have no reason to do it. I just love listening to him talk about anything. So I can listen to that stuff all day. So Eric Edholm joins us. First of all, congratulations. We used to say Eric Edholm from Yahoo, but now it's NFL.com, NFL Media. I don't know the proper terminology, but congratulations on your new gig. You are now colleagues with the one and only Jim Trotter.
That's right, and thrilled to be one of his colleagues and a great team. And yeah, it's been an outstanding start so far, and I can't complain whatsoever. And I'm like you, I could sort of find myself just staring at Tomlin for hours and just listen. I remember being at the Combine once, and he was watching a college basketball game, and he said, "Now hold on a second," and he was just breaking down the play, and I thought, he's as good at this as he is football. I'm in.
You should have recorded it. I wish I would pay for that. I'd pay for that video. Just like Mike Tomlin talking about like Marquette versus DePaul. Right. I would just watch that and listen to that. Now, how about Mike Tomlin talking about his new quarterback? He's more excited. People in Chicago, where you are, or close to you in Illinois, I know that. People in Chicago will be very interested to hear the excitement with which Mike Tomlin talks about Mitch Trubisky, because I don't think Bears fans share that excitement. How do you think this is going to work out in Pittsburgh?
It really is the conundrum for Bears fans, because here is one of the most successful head coaches in recent NFL history talking up a guy who the Bears defenestrated. Like, they couldn't wait to get rid of him. And I don't, it wasn't a personal thing with Mitch. He just didn't fulfill the expectations. But, Bears fans came to recognize Mitch as the problem. This was the guy we were going to fixate on. You're right. I am here. I did hear them. I did watch the games. And sure, there were times when Mitch absolutely was the problem. But there was some good there. There was some things that you felt like if he developed, if he took some confidence in. I always thought his scrambling ability was, we see him running right here. I mean, I always thought that was a part of his game that was maybe underutilized. So maybe Mike Tomlin has found a little bit of the secret sauce to kind of figure out how to unlock Trubisky. But of course, we all know Kenny Pickett is in the bullpen warming up. And I really believe Kenny will get a shot at some point this year.
Kenny was outstanding this preseason, but I'll say this, Eric, and maybe you can speak to this. The lesson I take away from Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago is that oftentimes it is not about the player when he fails. It is about the circumstances he was put into. And Matt Nagy has shown me he did not know how to handle a quarterback, particularly a young quarterback, in terms of playing to a quarterback's strength. Your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right on that. I always say that, you can evaluate the prospect, but fit, where do they end up? What team, who their teammates are? That is so crucial, so important. Everything down from the quarterback coach to, their offensive line, whoever they're throwing to, et cetera. All those things matter. And of course, the better players you're around and the more creative and, effective play callers you're put with, the more likely it is you're going to succeed in the NFL. But, there are a rare few who can obviously overcome such obstacles. And we've seen, Aaron Rodgers do it at times. And we've seen Tom Brady at the end of his New England run when things weren't as swell. But, we're talking about a handful, a select few. The other 98% of the quarterbacks out there, I agree. It's where they end up, how they're treated. And sometimes there are irreversible effects, and we don't know if Trubisky yet falls into that category. Does he have that confidence after having gone through the Chicago experience and then basically sitting for a year behind Josh Allen and company?
Eric, what's the quarterback? Go ahead, Mike.
Jim. Go ahead.
No, I was curious, Eric.
No, you go.
You guys are too nice, yeah.
I know. I'm curious. What's the quarterback storyline you're most interested in this season, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Rodgers, obviously, given that there's no Devontae. That's certainly fascinating. You know, if you want to go with more of the tabloid recent news, Tom Brady certainly has come up. But we know about these guys. I'm not saying that they aren't big stories. Of course they are. We don't know how much football we have left to watch of these guys. They're brilliant. They're maestros. We'll, study them ad nauseum. But if you're looking for a young quarterback, the situation with Zach Wilson in New York is really fascinating because they clearly loved him last year when they drafted him. They had him run as the starter throughout all the offseason. He begins the year as a starter, struggles, gets hurt, comes back, plays a little better. But now there's this question about availability for week one and, whether he'll be out there on Sunday or whether it's going to be Joe Flacco against his old team. That's, I think, at least sets the stage for the Jets season. And you say, well, all right, Jets are a bad football team, but look at all the draft assets they've pumped into this team. Look at the free agent additions they've made. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm just saying there has been a wholesale effort here to improve this football team and to try to stop being the joke of the NFL or, one of them along with the team across town. So, it really is interesting to me to see if Wilson, who came somewhat off the radar with a brilliant 2020 season in college against some lesser defenses. We know he's got that playmaking instinct, but can he put it all together? Can he be healthy for Sunday and build a big season this year with all the new parts around him? So that's one that maybe, outside of New York isn't getting the attention I think it probably deserves.
You mentioned that they love and loved Zach Wilson. I wonder, from your draft study, and you go back to 2021, did you love him? And how did you view him coming out of BYU? And after you tell us how you felt about Zach Wilson, I'm going to stay right there and just think about Denzel Mims, too, because I know he wants to be traded. He's part of a great wide receiver class. It was supposed to be a historic wide receiver class, and he wants out of there. So just those two guys, Zach Wilson and Denzel Mims, from your eyes.
Yeah, I would say it was like a Dr. Strangelove thing. I learned to love Zach Wilson, and I learned to kind of stop stressing about some of his shortcomings and realize that, he can do some things that other quarterbacks simply cannot. And that's both a good and a bad thing. It's a double-edged sword. It can quickly go off the rails if he tries to play that YOLO ball too much. And there is a system in place. And Mike LaFleur, we know from obviously the Shanahan LaFleur, coaching tree is somebody who I think has flexibility to a certain degree, but there's obviously a rigidity in terms of where people need to be and what the timing of the throws are and all that. And that's an interesting contrast in style. So that, along with missing valuable practice time the last couple of weeks, it's at least a little bit of a concern until proven otherwise. With Mims, I was a little bit ambivalent on him in the sense that he had all the physical ability. He took over some games in college, but there were times when you felt like, boy, you wondered if he could be a craftsman. You wondered if he was going to be a little bit too much of a freelancer at times. I think there was also some suspicion about Big 12 defenses and, some of the teams he was racking up the big numbers against. But, it's hard not to look at him and say, there is a talented football player in here that's sort of itching to get out. They kept him for a reason, too. I mean, it would be easy just to say, all right, here's the guy. We drafted Garrett Wilson. We have this young kid, Elijah Moore, we like, and we signed Corey Davis, and we've got all these pieces already here. Let's just kick him to the curb, see what we can get for him, and move on, call it a day. They kept him, though, and I think they kept him for a good reason because he's got a body type in a game as a jump ball kind of guy. That's a little bit different from the other receivers on that roster. So this is where, NFL teams, I think, have the advantage in terms of saying, we kind of control what's going to happen here. And you may have to sit a little bit, but we may call on you at some point when it's most needed.
Let me throw another Wilson at you. Let's go
Okay.
across the country. Russell Wilson, what do you foresee?
I can see things starting out slowly there. I'm not predicting a loss week one against their old team or anything, his old team or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, that's for other people to chime in on. But, Russell, obviously you go back to when his rookie year. First of all, it took, I think, Pete Carroll a little bit convincing that this, swashbuckling, freewheeling, playmaking guy was the one they needed to turn to. We always think of, Carroll as being conservative, as being the guy who loves to run the football and all that. But I think he realized that, Russell was going to, for the most part, make sound decisions, even while being this whirling dervish of a quarterback. So, that does take time. And it's, obviously we got Nathaniel Hackett out there, who's considered a young offensive guru. I think they're, excited about what, his knowledge is going to bring to the equation. And I think on some level, he's going to let Russ be Russ. But, for as good as their talent is on offense, and, I think they have good receivers, even with, some injuries and whatnot, it still takes a little bit of time to get to know what Russ likes, what he prefers, how much of a leash do you give him, that sort of thing. I'm just saying, I don't think they're going to, set the world on fire the first month of the season. Or if they do, there could be a little bit of a peeling back of the performance a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see. I just suspect that it's going to take a little time till everybody's kind of comfortable with what Russ does best, even if he does have 12 years of tape. Because I think he's been a little bit of a different quarterback the last couple of years, and you have to work around a few things that you maybe didn't have to before. I still love the guy. I think he'll end up being worth it. But right now, just some patience might be required.
Yeah, Jim and Eric, I'm just not sure. I don't want to assume you guys are keeping up with everything going on in the sports landscape. There was a college football game this weekend. I don't know if you caught it. Ohio State played Notre Dame. I think Ohio State won. I think they won the game 21-10.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, come on now. Come on. I had to bring it up. I want to bring it up before the show is over. I had to bring that up. But, CJ Stroud gets a lot of attention at the quarterback spot. Jackson Smith and Jigba got hurt in that game, but he's a guy a lot of people like. And then, to be fair, the number one overall pick, a lot of people think is in Alabama, whether it's Bryce Young or Will Anderson. What do you see when you start to look at some of these college football prospects? I know you're all over the draft. Who will we be talking about in April and May of 2023?
Well, if Saturday was the only measure of what these guys are going to be, I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to Anthony Richardson in Florida because I saw almost a young Cam Newton looking guy there, kind of a physical mutant looking dude who had touch, who had timing, who wasn't making mistakes. I think there was a fumble he lost, if I'm not mistaken, but the running ability that Utah defense had been talking up for weeks leading up to that game. We know we have to prepare for, his physicality, his running ability, but they also, I think, seemed a little bit caught off guard at just how fast he is, how agile he is. And, oh, by the way, how much arm talent he has. Stroud, I would say, even if he's not a runner, more of a pocket passer, definitely is going to have a lot of fans in the NFL. Maybe less so with Bryce Young. He's a slimmer build guy. He isn't a runner either for the most part, a little bit, but I mean, really not, that's not his game. It's mostly sitting back and being a Drew Brees type. Will there be as much love for him widespread as there is for Stroud or possibly Richardson or somebody like that? It remains to be seen, but I do think his pinpoint accuracy just sort of puts him on a different level. The wild card, I would say, is Will Levis from Kentucky, and another big kid who can move. And you saw, I think, especially down the stretch last year, last 5, 6, 7 games or so, improved touch, comfort in the pocket, going to his second and third reads and just showing a little bit more QB 201 level stuff that, we didn't necessarily see at Penn State or the first part of last season. So, those are probably the 4 hot names, I guess, if you will. I'm sure I'm forgetting 1 or 2, Tyler Van Dyke or whoever else, but those are the names that I think as we start the season right now, most teams have 1 game underway that I think will be still buzzing about in a month or 2.
Eric, don't let Michael fool you. The only game that matters to him is Michigan, Ohio State. And can I say,
Amen.
I'm with him on that one. I am with him on that one. So
that game will be fun.
I almost want to fast forward and get to it.
Yeah, you got it. The journey is what it's all about, man. Right? You got to sit through a lot of bad football to truly appreciate the great games like that one. That's at least my opinion. I don't know. I'm up for watching Iowa, South Dakota State 7-3 and watching my eyes bleed out because I know that work will get paid off later.
No,
Michael knows. Jim Harbaugh brings a level of pettiness to these rivalries that heightens the expectation and anticipation for that game.
Isn't that what we want, though? I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I do. And you got to have fun with it. I was watching ESPN on Saturday, and they had I don't know if it was taped, maybe it was live. They had Ryan Day on, and so Kirk Herbstreit clearly went to Ohio State, and he's talking about that school up north, and his co-host is like, correcting him, Michigan. Yeah, man, we know it's Michigan. We know it's but allow him to say that school up north. He's being petty, like a good Ohio State Buckeye is supposed to be.
Right? As long as he hasn't bought gasoline over the border in the last 40 years, I'll respect that. I'll you know what I mean? I experienced that with Missouri,
reference.
Kansas.
I love it.
Oh yeah, Norm Stewart used to always joke that he would never eat a meal by a tank of gas. So these are the things that I worry a little we may lose at some point in college sports. Let's hang on with all our life.
Hey Eric, man, good to see you, man. And as we said off the top, welcome to NFL media. I'm saying it like I hired you. But I would have recommended you. I would have recommended you for sure if they had called me. I'm glad you got the gig, and look forward to talking to you throughout the season.
Yeah, I'll take the welcome from you.
He's a colleague.
I appreciate that very much, guys. You do a great job, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.